Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining in with us today. We are in day 19 of our 21-day journey through the Gospel of John. And today is perfect timing because chapter 19 is a story of Good Friday, and today is Good Friday, which I'm excited for. I'm excited to spend this time in this passage with you this morning. But I also want to encourage you, not just as a plug for myself or as a plug for our church, but tonight at 7:30, I'll be teaching on this message of Good Friday. It'll actually be part two of the message that we started on Sunday night called The Fullness of Love, where Jesus, when met the full extent of human weakness, he still showed the full extent of his love. We're going to continue that theme tonight as we remember and think about Good Friday. I just ask that you guys watch along with us, invite your friends, invite your family members. It's the best time and easiest time to invite your friends to church. All you got to do is send them a text message with the YouTube link. That's all you got to do. fbcw.online.church. Join in with us as we teach and as we think about Good Friday, this moment, this hour that finally was here, and the story of love that was poured out upon that cross for you and for me. I ask that you watch in tonight, and we'll spend that time together. I'm excited to be with you all again tonight. But John chapter 19 is a story of brutality. It's a story of horrific images, but ultimately it's a story of love. And we'll talk about that this morning. We'll talk far more fully than that tonight. We'll be far more thorough in how we cover this chapter tonight and all the moments that led up to the final breath that he breathed. But John chapter 19 is the end of Jesus. It's the end of his earthly life. And this is the moment where Jesus has been saying all along that my hour is not yet come. This is it. This is the hour that he has had his eyes set on. This is the moment that Jesus' eyes are always fixated on. And this story just goes to show that God is sovereign, that God is in his providence, he is over everything, and nothing happens without God knowing. And Jesus knows that, and so ultimately he's fulfilling all these prophecies, all these laws, all these thoughts, and all these commands of God as he goes along the way. And the cool thing about this chapter is that in this chapter alone, we'll see 28 different prophecies fulfilled. 28 prophecies written within over 1,000-year period. Over 1,000 years, 28 prophecies pointed to this moment, whether it was Jesus crying, I am thirsty, or whether it was the fact that Jesus' bones were not broken, or the fact that he suffered and died, or if it was the fact that he was there hanging between two criminals. 28 prophecies written by King David, written by prophets like Isaiah, even fulfilling prophecies from Genesis chapter 3. We'll see the sovereignty of God on full display. Chapter 18 finished yesterday with Pilate asking, do you want Barabbas, the man whose name means son of the Father, or do you want Jesus, the Son of God? Who do you want? And remember, Pilate wanted to please the people. He was so fixated on keeping his job, so fixated on keeping the riots down, keeping them happy, that he would do anything just to make them happy. Because if any report went back to Caesar in Rome, his job would be gone, his life may be gone. And we actually find out later that from the writings of Josephus and other historical writings that a couple years later after this moment, there were some riots that broke out, and Caesar heard about some of the things that Pilate was doing, whether he was putting his own image on things, whether shields or coins. That didn't sit well with Rome, so Rome actually summoned Pilate to come to Rome for a new job. But Pilate kind of thought, that's probably not a new job. It's probably going to be my death. And so along the road to Rome, it said that he actually disappeared. And they have no kind of historical writings after that moment. They don't know where Pilate ended up. They don't know if he was killed, or they don't know if he went into hiding. But Pilate was so fixated on his job and so fixated on him pleasing everybody. That's why he offered Barabbas or Jesus. He finds in this chapter, you'll see he finds no guilt in Jesus. He doesn't know why he's being crucified. He doesn't know why he's being punished. And he offers him a chance out. And we'll see that here. But he ultimately wants to please the Jews. It says, then Pilate took Jesus and he flogged him. I'll go into more detail tonight, but the idea of the flogging was that his body was beaten to shreds with a whip or a cat of nine tails, which is 9 strands on a whip, mixed with pottery and glass and metal, whatever, that would just rip the flesh right off the human body. And they would beat the people 39 times. They believed the 40th lash of the whip would kill them. So he had him flogged. He brings him back in, body is bruised, body is beaten, body is almost unidentified. And the soldiers put a crown of thorns on his head, put a purple robe over his body, and gave him a scepter that he beat him with, and said, "Hail, hail, the King of the Jews." They mocked him. Says Pilate went out again, verse 4, and said to them, "See, I am bringing him out to you, that you may know I find no guilt in him." And so he brings him out, looking like that, thinking this would please the people. His body is beaten. He's almost dead. So Jesus came out wearing the crown of thorns and that purple robe. And Pilate said to them, "Behold the man. Behold this man who you want to kill, the man who you claim is claiming to be the king of the world, being the Son of God. Here he is." And just imagine just the horror of that image, seeing Jesus walk out there in that purple robe. His body is just destroyed. This crown of thorns on his head, bloodied and beaten. But when the chief priest said, when the chief priest and the officers saw him, they cried out, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" And Pilate said to him, Take him away yourself and crucify him, for I have found no guilt in him." Even after the beating, even after all this stuff, the Pharisees are not happy. They don't see anything being fulfilled here. They're not satisfied with this. They want him dead. So they want him to be crucified. And crucifixion was a form of execution created by the Romans that's absolutely tormenting. It was absolutely torturous. The word excruciating comes from the word that means crucifixion. It's the same root word. And that's where this excruciating pain, this death that would last for hours, this suffering would last for a long time, even days. That's what they wanted this to happen to Jesus. He says there, the Jews answered him, "We have a law, and according to that law, he ought to die because he has made himself the Son of God." When Pilate had heard this, he was even more afraid. He entered his headquarters and said to Jesus, "Where are you from?" But Jesus gave him no answer. So Pilate said, "Will you not speak to me? Do you not know that I have authority to release you and authority to crucify you?" And Pilate's trying to say, "Listen, I could let you go. I could let you go. This whole thing could be over. This could all be silenced. We'll forget about this. We'll move on." And Jesus says back to him, you would have no authority over me at all, unless it had been given to you from above." Slap in the face to Pilate. Pilate thinks he has the ultimate authority here, but Jesus is telling him you have no authority at all unless it's been given to you from above. Jesus knows that the ultimate authority, the ultimate will that he is submitting to, the ultimate will that he is following, the ultimate will that he's being obedient to is not Pilate, not the people, not the Pharisees. It is God. And God brings kingdoms. He brings kings. He tears down kingdoms. He tears down, and that includes Pilate. He's basically telling Pilate, you have no authority unless God gave it to you. That would not sit well with Pilate. He says, "Therefore, he who delivered me over to you has a greater sin." He's telling him, listen, the Pharisees are the ones that are filled here. They're the ones that are in the wrong here. But after that moment, it says Pilate sought to release him. Pilate wanted this whole thing to be over. He was willing to release Jesus, but the Jews cried out, "If you release this man, you are not Caesar's friend." Everyone who makes himself a king opposes Caesar. And so the idea of if he releases Jesus, he is not a friend of Caesar. He is not being a faithful governor of Rome. And he's telling them, if that's true, we're going to report you to Caesar. And when Caesar hears about this, you're done. So again, Pilate having to please the people. So it says in verse 13, when he heard these words, he brought Jesus out and down on he brought Jesus out and sat down on the judgment seat, a place called the Stone Pavement in Aramaic, Gabbatha. It says, now was the day of preparation for the Passover. It was about the 6th hour. He said to the Jews, "Behold your king." They cried out, away with him, crucify him, crucify him." Pilate said, "Shall I crucify your king?" And listen to what the religious, God-fearing, faithful, and obedient followers of God said. "We have no king but Caesar." It's amazing how in the midst of all their greed, in the midst of all their sin, in the midst of all their zealous righteousness for the Lord, they said that Caesar is their ultimate king. Interesting how they are able to just change their worship so quickly. It says, so he delivered them to be crucified. Now again, we'll talk tonight more about the crucifixion, but again, it's the most excruciating death imaginable. It says, so Jesus was taken to Golgotha, a place called the Skull. It's hung on a cross between two other criminals, on full display for all the world to see, all the people of Jerusalem to see. And it was there that he had his clothes gambled over. It was there that he cried out, I am thirsty, fulfilling another prophecy. And it was there that he looked upon his mother and looked upon John and said, woman, behold your son behold your mother. And he asked John in that moment to take care of his mother. And from there on, we know that they did. It was also in that time where Jesus yelled out the phrase tetelestai, which means it is finished. The work of God in Jesus, the work of God to take away the sins of the world is finished. And he breathed his last breath and he died. But one of the things I want to focus on in this final minute here is look who shows back up in the story. Wanting the body to be taken down, we see a man named Joseph of Arimathea, who was a disciple of Jesus, but secretly, out of the fear for the Jews, came to take his body. And look what it says in verse 39. Nicodemus, the man who, at the very beginning of this book, in chapter 3, who came to Jesus at night, came with Joseph of Arimathea to take his body down, to have him buried in a tomb, a borrowed tomb, to have his body prepared, and to have peace here. All this happened in verse 35, that you also may believe. When you come to the realization of this story, you see the fullness of your sin, but you also see the fullness of love. This story is ultimately a picture of the love of Jesus. Read through this today. Tune in tonight at 7:30. Hope to see you guys. I'm looking forward to spending the evening with you all. I love you all.